Hello, another installment of Kevin's licensed nurse meeting. Hey, I want to remind everybody that we're in response testing right now, which means that there's been an exposure to our building of somebody who is COVID positive. So right now we have to test once a week. Everybody has to test once a week. Please make every arrangement to get in on the day that Trish has scheduled testing. Please, 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 because you know what? I have to take you off the schedule if you can't come in and test. And we've got a tracking tool, so we know if you haven't tested. Please don't be that person who I have to call or text or beg you to come in and test. Anyways, I will be sending out a copy of Trish's bulletin, and I just kind of want to read it a little bit. If you if you had your COVID swab done Monday, that's today's Thursday. If you had it done on Monday, you need to swab again on Monday the 14th. If you swabbed on Tuesday, you need to swab on next Tuesday. So it's 7 days apart. You can't say, well, you know, if I tested on Monday the 7th, but you can't come in on the 14th, you can come in on the 15th. That won't work for us. You actually have to test no later than 7 days apart. So please, you have to adhere to this. The state of California is deadly serious about how we manage our COVID-19 testing. So I want you to know that I have a tracking tool, and I have to track everybody, whether they come in and got a test and when the results were received. You know, while we're talking about that a little bit, I want everybody to remember that you know, we're going to try our very best to keep COVID-19 out of this building. It's actually rampant in California right now. We're setting records for the most amount of COVID-19 positive ever each day, and deaths and stuff like that has been really bad. So you can do your part. Please don't be lazy with this. You have to wear your mask whenever you're outside of your home, whenever you're going into public, whenever you're here at work, and whenever you're working in the yellow zone, you need to wear the N95 mask that you've been fit tested for. We have plenty of masks, we have plenty of face shields. You have to wear them. I also want to remind everybody to sanitize in and out of every room. We have to do that. Now, we've got a care plan that they don't have to have their doors closed down there, but they do have to have curtains pulled. So we have to have curtains pulled in those rooms down on Bungalow in the yellow zone. So I don't want you guys to bring equipment in, stuff from home. Like you've got your favorite blood pressure cuff, it's a wrist blood pressure cuff. I don't want you to bring that into those rooms down there on the yellow zone. Really, we're not supposed to have them anywhere in our facility because they're fabric and they can't be sanitized correctly. So I want you to know that this is not only not recommended, but it's actually, a state surveyor finds that we get a deficiency, maybe even an immediate jeopardy if we found that we've got a COVID-19 case in here and we're using equipment like that between residents. Okay, enough about that. I've got a list of several things here I wanted to talk about. Hey, when you're doing a fall scene investigation, do me a favor, try your very best to come up with why that resident fell. Now, I understand that when you come into a room and you find somebody laying on the floor and they're not going to be able to say, I fell when I was trying to go to the bathroom, but you can look at the room and try to give me an estimated, an idea. Try to figure out, guess at what they were doing. It's not okay to just say, well, we found him on the floor. We don't know why. Well, because then we're never going to be able to put in an intervention that's going to prevent that fall. So if you found them on the floor between the bed and the bathroom, maybe, just maybe, they were trying to go to the bathroom. If you found them on the floor between their bed and their closet, maybe they were trying to get a jacket or something out of their drawer. Come up with those kind of guesses so that we, in our fall meetings, can help come up with an intervention that's going to prevent them from falling the next time. Very important. And in a part of our incident report package, there's a witness statement form in there. It actually, if it's an unwitnessed fall, you're thinking, well, how am I going to fill out the witness statement? It's actually not a witness statement. It's an interview record from all the staff that were providing care in that area on that shift. So it's an interview statement. So if you're the CNA who you didn't see the fall, but you're assigned to those rooms, you're expected to fill out that interview statement to say, when was the last time you toileted them? What were they doing the last time you saw them? Now, there's no blaming or shaming. I'm not going to come back to you and say, you didn't toilet this person after so long a period of time. No, but it gives us an idea of what's going on with that resident. You know, in the month of November, we set a record for the amount of falls that we had. We had like 28 falls. So we're doing a little better in December, mainly because a couple of residents that were our heavy fallers, frequent fallers, are no longer here in our facility. So we've got less falls. But anyways, please try to give me some sort of a reason, even if it's a guess. Kevin, I think he was trying to get something out of his closet. Or, you know what it looks like? They may have not set their brakes on their wheelchair when they were trying to get up. Something. So neuro assessments. You know, when we have a fall that has a head injury, you know, they bump their head, or an unwitnessed fall, we have to do the neuro checks. It's more than just doing a set of vital signs. We actually have to do the complete neuro assessment as well. All of those sections, all the way down to the box where you sign, have to be completed. If they didn't, and that resident has some sort of a problem later, it could be attributed to the fact that we weren't monitoring our resident very closely after a fall. Please complete those. Side rails. You know what? This is one of the first buildings I've seen in a long time that uses side rails as extensively as it does. Really, most nursing homes are going away from them. They're considered an entrapment risk. Entrapment, an entrapment, like they fall out of bed and they get their head or shoulder caught in their rail, yet their body is hanging on the floor. We recently had something like that in room 123. Anyway, so side rails. Our policy says that if we have side rails, we have to have a device restraint assessment and informed consent from the family, and it has to be for bed mobility. So the order will need to read quarter side rails on both sides of bed for bed mobility. Or it could also be for, you know, static balance. The resident wants to sit on the side of the bed, yet doesn't have good balance and wants to hold on to something. That's actually a good reason for having a side rail there too. Anyway, so I just want to remind people about that. Ativan orders. You know, this isn't new. It's actually been almost 2 years now, but Ativan needs to be ordered PRN initially when it's ordered. We can't go straight to a regularly scheduled Ativan order. And it has to be ordered for 14 days only. So whenever you get an Ativan order for a resident who's having anxiety, it needs to be, here's a good example. Ativan 0.5 milligrams PO BID PRN anxiety as exhibited by statements of anxiety or restless fidgeting. Those are good examples, but it has to be for only 14 days. Then we can move towards, depending on how many times they get it during that 14-day period, we may be able to get a regularly scheduled order for that. Ativan, 14 days only. So another thing that happened here real recently is, you know, we have dialysis residents who sometimes don't get back until well after lunch. We can't hold their trays more than 2 hours. In fact, I don't recommend leaving a tray in a resident's room. You know, 2 hours is the time limit. If the lunch trays come out at 11:30 and you put a tray over there and they don't come back until 2 o'clock, you may not give them that tray. I don't care, you may not. It has to go back to the kitchen. So I've talked to Nicole in the dietary department and our RD, and we've actually come up with a plan that there will be food ready for on dialysis days for those residents when they come back from dialysis. Most of the people that we have on dialysis right now, we currently have 3, and they all come back close to lunchtime. It's just a little bit after lunch, and giving them their lunch tray is fine. I want you guys to be careful warming stuff up in the microwave. It should not be something that you take off of a tray and warm it up in the microwave and then give it to a resident. Actually bring it back to the kitchen. They will prepare hot food for you. I've been in buildings where they even taken the microwaves out of all of the rooms because of residents receiving burns from CNAs that are trying to be helpful by giving them hot food. Lab reports. Hey, it's really important that we make sure that the fax machines have paper in them. And it might even actually be a good idea at the beginning of every shift for you to just walk over to the fax machine on your nurse's station and see that it's got paper in it. Oftentimes it doesn't, and then as soon as you add paper, it spits out the last 4 days worth of labs or orders from a physician. Anyways, what do we do when we get lab reports there? We have to fax them to the doctor. What I want you to do is I want you to write down at the very bottom of the lab slip, faxed to Dr. Gerritsen on 12/7/20 at 12 noon, and then sign your name. Fax it off to him, and then put that in the lab section of their chart. It actually needs to be in their chart. Many times we've got Dr. Ballard, our wound doctor. She comes in and is looking for labs. There's all kinds of labs ordered, but they're not in the chart because well, sometimes I wonder where they go. And while we're talking about that, when a resident comes back from an appointment and we have new orders or any kind of report, that actually needs to be given to Dr. Gerritsen for him to acknowledge. Remember, he's the one that ordered that outside appointment, and so he really is, we are on the hook to notify him of what the outcome was of the appointment that he ordered. So if we have a resident that goes out to, say for instance, a colonoscopy or something like that, they come back and they've got a report. We actually have to write down on the bottom of it, fax to Dr. Gerritsen, fax it off to him, and then put it in the chart under the consults, or if it's an x-ray report, it goes under the lab and x-ray part. If it's a consult or a physician's progress note, it needs to go under the progress notes tab of that resident's chart while we're waiting for Dr. Gerritsen to sign it and maybe even give us a new order. When we get that faxed copy back from him with his signature on it, it goes directly into the chart, and we remove the one that didn't have a signature on it yet. Also, I want to mention something else too. Whenever we get a lab report that's a urine culture or a wound culture or really any kind of lab report, you want to kind of include information about why we sent it off. For instance, if you're sending a urine culture off, remember to include their allergies, and that Dr. Gerritsen had already started them on an antibiotic, might be helpful to put on there too. Was started on Macrobid or whatever it may have been on the 7th or something, for example. That way when he gets that report, he'll be able to see, oh shoot, the culture and sensitivity says that they're resistant to that antibiotic, I better switch it over. We recently had a wound culture that was sent off on somebody. 5 days went by before anybody realized that she had been on the wrong antibiotic all that time. So we have to look at what we're doing a little bit. We need to, when we get new information about a resident, Dr. Gerritsen will have to know about it. And we need to include information from what we've got going on here in our facility so that Dr. Gerritsen can make a correct order on that. Just a reminder, CNAs should never leave a wet brief in a garbage can in a resident's room. So if you go into a room and you're administering meds and you notice that the garbage is full, you know what, you can empty it. It doesn't have to be a CNA, but we can't have a brief in there. It's a dignity thing, and it makes the room smell bad. We wonder why people won't eat sometimes, because their room smells. So anyways, just no briefs in the garbage. If you put one in the garbage, it's only that you're holding it there until you can gather up all the dirty linen, put that in a bag, tie that bag off, and then grab the garbage, tie that bag off, and go to the utility room to dispose of it. Another thing, our pharmacist has asked me to pass along to you guys that when we get an order for, let's use Tylenol for example. Tylenol, 325 milligrams, give 2 tabs. Well, we also have to put in parentheses how many milligrams total we're supposed to give. So the correct way that a Tylenol order would be written would be Tylenol, 325 milligram tabs, give 2 tabs, and then in parentheses 650 milligrams total, PO, Q6 hours, PRN, mild pain. Another example of an order that needs to have more information on it is, say for instance, morphine, the Roxanol. So we can't just have an order that says give Roxanol 0.25 cc's. We have to include how many milligrams that is. So if the Roxanol order says give 0.25 milligrams sublingual, Q2 hours, PRN mild pain, it needs to have in parentheses a total of 5 milligrams is given. So it needs to have the amount and the milligram in that order for each one, for mild, and then for moderate, and then for severe. Just a reminder, we can't use a simple mask without an order in the chart. All our orders for oxygen here, when we get them, are for nasal cannula oxygen. So if you find that you've got a resident who is a mouth breather and you want to put them on a mask, you need to get an order from a physician to do that. And just know that you're highly concentrating the oxygen delivered to that resident when you put a simple mask on them. Running it at like 3 to 5 liters makes the FiO2 100%, makes it 100% oxygen as they're breathing, and you could knock out their respiratory drive like that if they have COPD. When a resident goes to an appointment, we're supposed to write a nurse note. So say for instance, resident Mary Smith is going to cardiology today. Write a quick nurse note, only needs to be 1 line. Resident left the facility at 11:30 for cardiology appointment, awaiting return. Then when the resident comes back, you need to write a note. Resident has returned from cardiology appointment. No new orders or new notes received, will follow up. Or if you get new notes or orders and new notes received will be in your note, and then you have to also state that the RP and the MD were notified of these. Very important. I think that's it. You know what, I just want to take a moment to say that you guys are doing really well. Our census has been plummeting here lately. Right now our census is like 46, and most days we're overstaffed, but you know, we have to have a minimum amount of nurses because we have 3 nurses stations that are kind of far apart. Anyway, so we're working to make sure that we're not overstaffed. We won't be able to readmit until I believe the 17th of December when we've cleared this new COVID-19 exposure. So we regularly have people that are going home and other discharges. So you know, our census is falling. So anyways, happy holidays. Thank you.